Welcome to Raging Bullets, a Comics Fan Podcast, Season 2, Episode 3.
From the sleepy suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio, there are assembled the world's two greatest podcast hosts, created from the cosmic legends of the universe. Sean Whalen.
Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics Fan Podcast. I'm a big fan of variant covers. My love for Batman is that stuff. Let's talk some comics.
And Jim Segulin.
How's it going, eh? You know me and Superman. I'm really loving what they're doing. Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast.
Their mission? To discuss DC comics in books, movies, and television several times a month in 1 to 3 hour episodes. And to serve all mankind.
Outstanding.
Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensational sensei of the whatnot, Segulin.
How's it going, eh? I'm going to do the whole voice in my Batman voice. Actually, I'm not.
Because that really hurts my voice. How's it going, eh?
I was content to let you keep going with that just to see how long it would take before you break.
I barely made it through the intro.
Imagine doing that as your, Christian Bale did that as his job. I don't know how he still has a voice after doing all of that. So this episode, we are going to be talking about Batman Death in the Family. It's actually the first of a two-part discussion on Batman Death in the Family. And we're going to be discussing Robin Lives. It's a very big story from the late 80s. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
One of the things I love about DCBS is search functions. Search functionality. If you're, for example, I'm looking for Batman stuff. I throw in Batman just in the search window, and I get all their active current stuff, but I also get the in-stock and relisted items. I'm right now looking at a Batman Day from 2023, some variant covers. And, Batman 137 they still have. But I've got the Batman automobile retail boxes, the Batmobile from Batman Forever. 45% off, only $13.72. It's a really great way to just, if you're looking for specific comics, if you're looking for, swag, if you're looking for apparel, throw in whatever you're looking for in the search engine and go to town. So thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, I love the deals of the week. And you got the Absolute Justice League, the world's greatest superheroes, hardcover. $100 regularly, 50% off, only $49.99. Thunderbolts, Epic Collection, Volume 2, Wanted Dead or Alive. This is $44 regularly, 46% off, only $24.29. X-Men 29 Omnibus Hardcover. They have both versions of the cover, so you can choose whichever one you want. $125 regularly, 46% off, only $67.50. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, I told everyone what we're talking about, but can you tell everyone what kind of podcast we are?
We are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you get better. Enjoy the show.
Let's talk Death in the Family.
Jim, our first discussion this episode is going to be a Batman, a Death in the Family, and Jason Lives, which we'll have to talk about both of those sequences. The writer was Jim Starlin, the penciler was Jim Aparo, the inker was Mike DiCarlo, letterer was John Costanza, colorist Adrian Roy, and the editor was, of course, the great Denny O'Neil. This took place in Batman 426 to 429 in August to November of 1988. And this spun out of the fact that Jason Todd was the replacement for Dick Grayson. And initially, Jason Todd was almost, they made him another circus performer. His initial story was very, very similar to Dick Grayson. It was post-Crisis that they did this new version of Jason Todd and changed his origin story a bit to the point where it made him more that he was trying to rip off the titles of the tires of the Batmobile. His story was a little bit darker than what was before. The problem was it also changed the character's personality quite a bit, gave him more of a unique personality, which sounds good on paper. The problem was there was a mix. Some people really did not like him. And it led to this story, A Death in the Family, where they started taking a look at what if we did a Batman story where fans got a chance to vote on whether or not Jason were to stick around. This was intriguing at the time because he was a character, I'll admit, I wasn't a big fan of Jason. I didn't hate him, but I definitely got the fact that he lacked a certain amount of likability. Max Allan Collins had reintroduced the character, and Jim Starlin was kind of eventually playing off the fact that people didn't really like the character. He didn't want to use him at first because of the fact that the character was unlikable. So it's an interesting sort of thing that this character has come to this pathway where now people got a chance to vote him off the island. I remember vividly the voting and being a part of the process. And the story that won me over, coincidentally enough, was Jim Starlin's The Cult. I loved Jason Todd in The Cult. I thought The Cult is a fantastic story. It's one of my shortlist Batman stories favorites of all time. That won me over to the character to the point where I'm like, oh, no, I want this guy to live. So I was voting for it. The voting was like super close as far as not whether or not he was going to live or die. Now, you were reading comics at this time, but not DC. Were you aware of this story? Was this anything that was on your radar at all?
Yeah, okay, so I was aware of this, and I remember, and I'm trying to remember, I think I talked to our friend Bill about this story after he died, which is odd, because he's not really a comic reader. He gets his comics from you.
Well, no, then he was.
Oh, then he was, okay.
So he was reading this, so we have a mutual friend named Bill, and no, at this point in time, Bill was reading Batman.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember having a conversation with him about it, because I was reading Marvel. I was reading X's. X's and Wolverine at this point in time. So the New Universe, I think, was out then. And that Marvel New Universe, I was reading that big time. But I was not reading any DC on this.
Oh, like Starbrand and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was big time on those.
I like those too.
Yeah. But so that's what I was reading at this time, and I remember having a conversation with Bill about this and about them killing off Robin, and and the way the story played out. And it sounded like a cool story. I never picked it up, and then when I was in college, I think it was college. I know I read this when we started the podcast. I went back and I read this because I've read this before today, before this recording. But I want to say in college, I borrowed my buddy Joe's books and actually read Death in the Family and Alone in the Place of Dying. I borrowed that from him and actually read the series. I know I've read it before reading it for this recording. I know I read it, during when we started the podcast. At some point in time, I picked this up, and I picked it up and I read it, and I read all that stuff again. And then I remember, I read this before, but I can't place when I read this thing originally. Is the funny thing. I'm trying to remember, when did I actually read all of this stuff? It wasn't when it came out live, and I found out about the death of Robin really after he was dead. I maybe saw something in a comic shop when I was picking up my books, but didn't. It wasn't on my, oh my God, radar. I've got to vote to save or kill Robin or any of that stuff. But yeah, it's interesting because, again, reading all this stuff through this, I'm like, yeah, I remember reading all of this. I remember reading all this before, and I know I read it before just before the podcast, before we started the podcast. So it's interesting just going back through and trying to place when I originally read this.
Boy, and you're right. Starbrand was being published at that time. John Byrne was actually doing the writing and the art on that. It was the second leg of the Starbrand run.
Yeah. And
because that book ended in '89, and John Byrne was doing the story and the art at that point. So just from a time standpoint, this was a great story. I didn't remember how big the chapters were. It was funny this time around. I don't know. I was much more cognizant of the fact that these were oversized issues. Every bit of this story needed that. There was a lot of depth to it. It wound up having, especially with it kicking off in the beginning and setting the stage in issue 426 with Jason kind of his just being rash and leaping into action and becoming much more erratic in his behavior and the increased danger end of it, where Batman's almost having to back him up to make sure he doesn't get killed.
Yeah.
because of the way that he's behaving. And Bruce recognizing now that he's becoming more of a liability. This is an example of Bruce, though, where some of his parenting skills, back in this era, this is a different Batman than the dark and brooding one that we eventually get. There's a lot more accessibility to him. He's much more of a world jet setter. Constantly he's referencing all these friends he's got everywhere, which is fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Him with all these friends and contacts. But Jason, in particular, during this time, is dealing with the fact that Bruce is not quite sure how to deal with... Bruce had the same kind of loss, but is not sure how to deal with Jason's way of avoiding dealing with his parents' loss. That's part of what's going on with him right now in his behavior, is that Jason's not valuing life. He's treating it like a big game, and that's a piece where, Bruce is like... You're going to get yourself killed in this process. And leads to this whole story arc. I absolutely adore the Alfred moments in this. Alfred it's where I miss him immensely.
Yes.
Him being Bruce's confidant. When Bruce has those rough edges is something that really plays out well in this. This is very, very well written.
Oh, big time. And again, it's one of those very heavy dialogue-focused story, but it's not just that. There is some great action sequences. There's some great, just moments where, some of the word balloon, the thought balloons going on where, Bruce is breaking down just how reckless Jason's being, and, and it's a really cool, just look at, the comic, the inside, the whatnot behind this story, behind the characters, behind who they are. And it's one of those things one of the things I kind of like, there's been some runs where they have very little thought balloons and you're based on the action and the word dialogue. And I like those stories. But then there's times like this when you really do need to see that stuff going on. And, Bruce has some great, inner thoughts where, he's breaking down what's going on with this kid. And in his dialogue with Alfred, again, another moment where you really do see a more responsible side of Batman with, the running joke is always Batman brings these kids into these dangerous situations. How is he still getting more children to be responsible for? And you see here where he does, he thought he was helping him. He realized he's not helping him. He's got to pull him off the street. And I love the moments between him and, because Jason, of course, overhears all this stuff and storms out. But Bruce is like, hey, let me help you work this out. We can start by talking about your parents. He actually has a responsible thing where he's trying to help Jason work through his troubles. Not just pushing him, saying, you're on the bench, kid, sucks to be you. He's like, we're pulling you, but I want to help you. And I like seeing that kind of Bruce in there, where he's being a responsible parent. It's kind of interesting.
Now, what I really like about this, it's funny, we keep talking about the unlikability of the character, as far as that being a thing at this time. And I strangely am going to say it's a strength. I like that Jason is different than Dick Grayson. It leads to different storytelling, leads to Bruce. As far as the fact that you're saying we're reading these every month, what is the draw to keep coming back? It's character, right?
Yeah.
I actually really like Bruce having to deal with this kid. The idea would be that you want to see this kid keep evolving and keep growing. It's what we want to see from Jason nowadays, right? And it's something that I found myself appreciating more in this read through A Death in the Family, was how many great character moments there were between Bruce, Alfred, and Jason.
Well, think back to our beloved little monster, Damien.
Yes.
How much do we love him because of the difficulty he was for Dick Grayson when Grayson was Batman, and when the difficulty is with Bruce. The same kind of deal. Now, for me, I have never read a Jason Todd where it wasn't this origin. I never read the pre-crisis Jason Todd. I don't know anything about him being a former circus star or any of that stuff. I only know him as the kid who stole the wheels from the Batmobile, who has a lot of baggage that he's dealing with, and all this whole story arc thing. So this is the only Jason Todd I know. So it's kind of interesting that there was a Jason before this that I have no idea. I've never read any of that stuff.
Yeah, I remember reading the stories when Jason first took over, and it was very much so. If you're a classic Batman and Robin fan, and this is no insult to those stories, they were good stories. It felt like Dick Grayson was still there. That's not a knock on the character. They were fun reads. It just wasn't like this is a drastically different person. Whereas obviously this is a drastically different person than Dick Grayson. It's something I'm really enjoying in reading it now. I remember monthly at the time though, there being various times I wanted to punch Jason. In reading him as a story. And that was something the writers were playing off of too. So you got to the point where the storytelling was making you want to do that. Like that was something that when they found out that fans didn't like him as much, they were incorporating that into the storytelling, which I think is intriguing. It wasn't to the point, sometimes you hate a character in the wrong ways, where you're like, I don't want to read Batman anymore because of this. I was not in that place. I remember gradually getting to the point where, like I said, stories like The Cult made me go, wait, I'm starting to like this kid. And it's kind of, your Damien analogy is not necessarily such a bad one, off of this. I wasn't saying a bad one at all, but I can't help but wonder if Jason had lived. And they're going to be DC's doing like a series of stories or a story that takes place in the what if Jason lived. Like they're going to play off of the fact that the issue's been released that where the other choice happened, and what does that look like? So we're going to be getting that kind of storytelling. I would be curious to read more to see potentially what could have been if we'd gone the other route. As a longtime reader, I absolutely love where the Batman story went. I mean, look how much that's resonated to today. Everything that's happened with the Robins, with Dick going to the Titans, with Jason, we wouldn't be having Dick in the elevated role he's in now. Jason going through his path, we never would have had some of those so great stories involving Red Hood. Tim Drake wouldn't have happened. Then you'd argue Damien. Would Damien have ever happened? I don't know. That all spun off of that Denny O'Neil story. I just love the way the Batman arc is, but it'd be kind of cool to see where this could have gone.
Yeah. For me, I think we would eventually get Damien, just because, you think where Damien comes from. I could see Damien existing, but we would never have gotten somebody like Tim Drake, which is which would be a tragedy in time, because he is a fabulous character, and I still love him as a character, as his portrayal. So that's something that we wouldn't have if we didn't kill off. And then, to be honest, the Red Hood story, I've loved some of those great, just the original Red Hood, but even the stuff beyond that, where he's starting to grow and he's starting to develop and he's starting, getting his own groove and figuring out who he is, what he's about. So there's so much that if they hadn't chosen to kill him off here, we would not have. There's a lot of great stories we would be missing, because of this. And part of those great stories are our reaction to this story. Who knows if they ever intended on changing Jason around and doing all what, maybe Jason would, if he had lived, he would have a similar background that he currently has. But who knows? I don't know what they would have done. And that's kind of curious to see what if any, they had plans for him after if he lived, where that was going to go. We know the immediate stuff, but beyond that, what was the long-term goals for a living Jason Todd?
So with Jim Aparo, and I want to apologize right now because he's one of my favorite Batman artists of all time. If anything, he's the Batman artist of so much of my life because, in the 80s, I was reading Batman religiously, and this was the artist. Tremendous. I mean, this art for me is comfort food. I use that term often on the podcast, but this is coming back home. This was my Batman. I had started actively reading Batman comics. Neil Adams, his artwork was iconic, and it appeared a lot of places when I was growing up. It was in the book and record set that I got as a kid. But this was the first artist that I was very familiar with as, oh, this is the guy that's drawing Batman now. This is who is, my Batman artist. I really love his storytelling, his visual storytelling, his facial reactions. The physical combat is absolutely fantastic. Just a lot of attention to detail in this that really holds up, I think, all these years later. It's, him and Mike DiCarlo on inks, I think, just really hit it out of the park.
100% holds up. This is absolutely amazing. And again, like you're talking about how just the look of your youth and all that. This is, for me, some great comic book artwork in that, this is timeless for me. When I was going back and reading it, I was absolutely loving this work. Just loving the look of it. And again, last time I read it, I really didn't appreciate the artwork as much. My art read-through on this was absolutely stellar. Just, you talk about the fluidity, emotion that you get in combat sequences. That's very difficult to capture, on the page. They do a brilliant job with it. The facial expression, Gordon's facial expressions are absolutely stellar in this. I love any of the interactions with him and just the look of Jim Gordon in this, 100% just there. But the Joker, I'll tell you, this version of the Joker with the elongated jaw, and it's an obvious physical distortion of him because of what happened to him, is absolutely, I love this. And again, the looks, the over the top, laughing, smiling, grinning look that he has periodically throughout this is, again, just something like, yes, this is some great Joker stuff. And it's but again, the story that goes along with it. I love their discussion, where, we're in the beginning of the issue, Joker's got to take off and he's got to get out of town because of what he did to Barbara, and everyone's gunning for him. And I love how his henchman's like, hey, boss, what you did to, you left her a cripple. Well, remind me to send her a handful of pencils and a tin cup. I'm like, that is just like cruel, and, just a look at as he's saying it, it's pure crazy Joker wonderfulness. And I'm like, holy crap, this is outstanding.
One of the things that's great about this storyline, when you really think about where the Joker's gone, right? Because there's been an evolution of the Joker that's really apparent if you're reading this and you think about the Joker today. The character has evolved quite a bit. Jim Gordon's evolved quite a bit. Batman in particular, you take a look at it and you say, well, he's Batman. Why are there all these Batman titles and all that? You can see how what keeps the character intriguing and interesting is in different eras, you gradually evolve him. This was not an overnight switch for Bruce. It was events that were happening in his life. What happened to Barbara Gordon, Killing Joke, things like that. These more dangerous happenings that were happening around him were gradually evolving him to want to work alone, to want to kind of be more of the strategist, want to become the Batman that we're used to today. It's really interesting when you see the differences in this, because the jet setting in particular, and we'll talk more about as we go through the story, when you see them go from place to place, he knows somebody everywhere, and they're like friends of his that he can just like call up as Batman or as Bruce Wayne, depending on what the situation is. And he's got like this Rolodex of like just contacts everywhere. Not saying that he doesn't have that today, but it's a very, like, the ones that have a relationship with Batman, it's a very different relationship with Batman. Like, Batman's coming in as the boss. Like, they're all reacting to him that way. This is Batman the colleague. He gets equal respect, but it's a very different tone. It's a very different approach. It's interesting to see how much this character has evolved. He gets in these moments where he gets very determined, especially when he's when he's investigating the Joker situation and he's recognizing the danger of it. And I actually like the switch from, when I say friendly Batman, it's just softer. It's not like he's sitting there all smiles and cracking jokes or anything like that, but he's much more like when he and Gordon are investigating, he is another, like, he's almost operating like another agent of the law, officer of the law. Nobody's like wondering why Batman, he doesn't have to sneak in, right? Where, we get more of that these days. this is a Batman who's there as an integral part of the investigation, then he's shooting off because, like, hey, this is me versus the Joker. I've got to sit there and, really figure out what's going on there. I am a huge fan of this Batman design with the cape that goes over the shoulders. That wasn't always the case in Batman artwork. And I don't know. There's something about that. I just loved that look with the cape over the shoulders. It's a subtle design choice, but it was something that was prevalent in this book. And I really like this costume design.
Yes, I completely agree with you. This, again, this is a classic Batman look, and there's just, him just standing there. He does have just that presence.
Yeah.
And I do like that. And I dig how again, the artwork on this is classic, holds up, brilliant work. So it was fun. It was fun to do. Just the art read through is a fun thing for me this time. It's always a fun thing, but it's one of those things. Sometimes, when we get in our groove, I do my read, I do my art read, I do a third read. This time, when I was just going through the art read, I've done multiple art reads where I just look at the images. So I love this story, so I'm not knocking anything on that. So for me, this is one of those things where the story and the artwork both are on an epic level. Yeah. This, for me, is an amazing story, amazingly, wonderfully story created. And I was like, this is outstanding. I love this story. So, it was funny when we're talking about what we're going to do. When you said this one, I'm like, yes.
I'm surprised we've never done this one before.
Me too. That actually shocked me that we'd ever talked about this, because this is on the short list. You mentioned The Cult, which I agree is on a short list. This is on a short list of just epic stories to do. And I think what happened was we were looking for an event episode of us to do this. Yeah. 100 or 2-5, one of the big event, like, we're going to cover this. And I know we talked about one time doing a death episode where we were going to do death of Robin, death of Superman, or we were going to do an episode where people die, and we never did that episode.
This is where I want to do more story arcs, though, because it sets ourselves up to get to these things, because we're already over 18 years into the podcast now, yeah. And we're just now doing Death of the Family. Yeah. It's like, what? Yeah. The Joker sequence where we get to see him, he's recognizing now, okay, I've been doing a lot of killing, a lot of attention my way right now. I need to get out of town, but it's always with the Joker kind of like, hey, time to go, and that's and he unveils the fact that, and by the way, I got my own cruise missile. Now it's time for me to get into international politics. It's, again, the danger's up there, but there is the Joker at his best when there is that twisted, it's weird to say fun factor to him. You never feel like the guy's dangerous. He's erratic. You could get killed. I saw Batman 89 in concert recently. So this year they're doing this run of Batman 89 with an orchestra playing the Danny Elfman theme, the Danny Elfman music, I should say, the score in the background. It was stunning. But I was thinking of Jack Nicholson's portrayal, where at any moment, he killed Bob. Spoilers if you haven't seen Batman 89, I'm sorry. But, one of his henchmen he ends up killing. And it's matter-of-factly, I'm going to need a moment. That's this guy. Like, this Joker is that one where he's, sure, all kinds of hijinks and shenanigans and fun, but pulls out a cruise missile. Yeah. I mean, what he can do with that and the danger of what he can do with that, you never forget for a second that he's constantly escalating what he's doing. He's trying to outdo what he did before. He wants spectacle. He wants chaos. And I really like that this story builds that, even though we've got this more clown-like Joker. I know it's a weird thing to say clown-like, but we don't get this version of the Joker these days as much as we used to. The Joker today is darker in tone. This one is still in that transition to the dangerous edge that the Joker has, where you've got the elements of the classic Joker mixed with the what we're more used to these days, this really is like the ultimate transition arc. And I didn't realize how much of this is that. This isn't part of the era where we are growing to what we're used to today. And this is a pivotal storyline for that, where what comes afterwards is gradually building more and more towards modern day interpretations of these characters. So it's a pivotal sort of piece.
Yeah. Well, and again, they're taking plenty of time to build the different parts of the story. We've got these great Joker moments that lead into a great Jason Todd moment where he's getting his background. And here's where we're going to see where Jason's going to start finding out about his family, about his roots and his history. And, but again, it was a great this flashback letting people know the backstory of Jason if you weren't 100% comfortable with it, if you weren't with it. But it ties it into the story nicely, and it furthers the development of his story. And then you go right from that into Batman investigating, trying to track down the Joker. They kept doing this really cool balance of going back and forth, and even Bruce's some of his inner dialogue where he's so worried about Jason, he's kind of slipping up on with taking out the one henchman. Forgot how fast his reflexes were. Took him down too hard, knocked him unconscious. Can't get any information from him. Batman's thrown off his game because of this stuff going on with Jason. And I loved seeing, again, this Bruce who admits, I'm making mistakes. I've got to focus on what I'm doing here. And again, it's, this Batman, I very easily could see this Batman and current Batman being one and the same person.
Yep.
So I'm not saying it's like a dramatic change and difference. Oh my God. No, this is the same kind of guy. And I love this kind of, this usage. And again, great detective work throughout this. Jason does a little bit of detective work. Bruce, of course, is doing detective work, trying to track down the Joker, going through his henchmen, trying to figure out where they're going. They've got passports and visas for Lebanon. What's going on in Lebanon? Where is this leading? What's up with the Joker? And I love just how they're playing this out.
It's funny. You take a look at that time passage for any person, right? So you and I knew each other at the era of this, right? I mean, we weren't as close as we are now, but we were friends. It's funny thinking back to who we were then and who we are now. We are not the same people we were then. Yeah. In sometimes in subtle ways and sometimes in very dynamic ways, but it's very similar to Batman's journey. You can take a look at that and go, yeah, people do change that much over that time period. They really do. I agree with you. This is definitely the same guy, but a lot of life has happened to Batman since then. And it's something we can all relate to. That's where these comics are fun with their serialized storytelling, is the fact when you start feeling like they're these thriving characters where like, oh, this is Batman in 89, I kind of get it. Or Batman 88, I should say. Jason in this one, this was interesting to me. So in this story, I did not find Jason unlikable at all. I got that he is that character, or, that one who's been kind of this pistol, this, I don't want to say thorn in Bruce's side, but a challenge in Bruce's world, as you would with any child that you're raising. But I found this story, similar to The Cult, was developing a Jason where he's a flawed human being, but so is Bruce in this, to kind of the point of where you were going with this. I actually found myself reading through this, I'm like, boy, it wasn't just The Cult that made me vote for Jason to live. It was this story. Yeah. Like, I like him in this story. I like his journey. I'm intrigued by it. I want to know more about his family. I like the discovery that we get that, like, just the S that's sitting there. Wait a minute. Mom's not my mom? You got to remember me. I was an adopted kid, right? So he comes across this stuff. Back in the 80s, man, I was connecting with this and eating it up. I'm like sitting here like, oh, man, there's now a connection with Jason Todd and me. I remember, this kind of stuff is kind of cool. Not exactly, but wow, what a cool little, accessibility point for me. I was nowhere near voting him off the island from this storyline. I was completely drawn in. It was give me more Jason, more of this evolving, growing this character. That's why I wonder where it would have gone. What would have come in the Batman universe if this character had been given a chance to organically grow and thrive under the tutelage of not only where Jim Starlin was ultimately going to go with him, but where other writers could have gone with him down the road, as they continued to grow the character out of where he started to where he could go. Damian is, I think that's where it starts to match your thoughts about Damian. Damian's not the same character now that he was when he was introduced. I can't imagine Jason being the same character. And I really enjoy that this storyline is a continued evolution of the character. And his use of the Bat computer, as far as to start his investigation and everything that he was doing, I'm like, these are some of the things I like about Tim Drake. That, we start to see Jason becoming more than just the rash kid who's going out there and beating up thugs. He's now pulling in some of the investigation strategies that he's learned from Bruce and putting them to use. And I'm like sitting here like, oh, kind of liking this dude.
Yeah.
Like, this is all right. It's I really was enjoying the arc of this piece. So the journey, when you knew as a reader, like, it's coming up, there's going to be a time where I'm going to be able to vote for this guy to die. I'm like all in on, I've got to vote for him to live. Because of this. I mean, these sequences were rich and vivid and making me want that. Shiva's an interesting one because, we had that Charmin Rosen, we had Shiva Wusan, Dr. Sheila Haywood. Shiva I knew of, but not the way that we do today. As far as, at least I didn't as a reader know her as well as I did today. So, concept of Lady Shiva now, I've read so many stories with her. At 88, I did not have as much comic access as I've gotten older, especially in reading up on a lot of the characters and things and their backstories. So, Shiva, I didn't understand as much of the significance of her as I do now. I love that she's one of the players in this, as possibly being Mom.
Yeah, it's funny because I sit back and I think, if I was reading this back then, how would I have voted? Knowing my personality I had back then, I would have voted for him to die. Just because I was a little bit of a jerk at times. And I would have voted for him to kill him off. That was my personality a little bit back then. So I probably would have voted for him to die. But if me now, the personality and how I am now reading this, I'm like, how could anybody vote this kid off the island?
Yeah,
because this has been a great, as you're saying, this has been a great story. Just seeing how he's portrayed here, even in the very beginning when he was rash, that was still some cool stuff going on. So it's one of those things like and again, I'm not knocking the decision to kill him off because it gave us great later Jason Todd stories. It gave us Tim Drake. It gave us Damian. It gave us all the stuff that Dick Grayson goes through, stuff Bruce goes through. We've got some great stories out of this. So I don't have an issue. Again, I completely agree with their decision to kill him off, but it does get me wondering, why did people vote him off? Why did people not really like him? And it's got me wanting to read the stuff really before this, because I want to read who was this unlikable Jason Todd? Because I've read The Cult, I've read some of the big stories when he was there, and again, like you, I'm like, I don't see anything wrong with the kid, but I haven't read the ongoing stuff since he was first introduced, since he was first brought into the picture, the reboot of his storyline and all that stuff. So it's like there's so much stuff that I want to read on Jason Todd just to get this understanding of why people voted against him.
So the whole voting process, do you know how many votes it was that was different?
No.
72.
Dang!
That's it. So there was 10,614 votes total. 5,343 were for his death. 5,271 were for his survival. That's just 72 votes. What was interesting about the thing, I ran into Jim Starlin at New York Comic Con. We were at the New York Comic Con where he was there. I got something signed by him, and when we were chatting during that process, I just told him how much I loved The Cult and how The Cult was one of the pivotal stories that made me vote in favor of Jason living. And he mentioned that he was surprised that the voting was so close, because he said it really was close. I was reading something on Wikipedia where Denny O'Neil was saying at the time, what you don't know is, how many people called in multiple times, rigging the vote one way or the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He said there was a lawyer who programmed his, supposedly there was a lawyer who programmed his Macintosh to dial the killing number every few minutes. But, that's something that there was no evidence to back up those kind of crazy theories and things. But it's still intriguing to think about the fact that it was so close. And if there was any kind of shenanigans in the voting process, how the story could have gone very, very differently.
Yeah.
But Denny O'Neil didn't tell anybody. There was going to be a party for this, and they decided to cancel it in favor of waiting till the book shipped for people to find out what actually happened. He didn't tell his wife. He didn't tell the artist. I mean, that's pretty crazy. He didn't tell Starlin even.
That is neat.
Yeah.
That is something actually I love hearing that kind of stuff. Because it's the trick. And this is before the internet, so it's not like we could have spoilers going out there or any of that stuff. But that's a neat thing to really say. We are going to keep this completely hidden and away from everyone's attention. That's outstanding.
Because they had the 2 versions of the book ready to go. It's really, really intriguing. This whole jet setting piece that's going on, I like that we've got 3 different storylines going on here throughout the book, and it's something that's easy to follow. You've got Jason's story, you've got the Joker's story, and you've got Bruce's story, which is, I know Bruce's story is really converging with the Joker's story to a certain extent, but it's still a Bruce who's torn between wanting to take care of his charge, his son, so to speak, in Jason Todd, recognizing the danger that is the Joker, of the fact that he could be killing millions with his actions. So it's really a piece where I see the conundrum. What do you do when you're Batman? This is somebody who we know historically has had trouble with his parenting issues anyway.
Yes.
And but not it's different in this one. It's softer in this than what we kind of see today in some of his mistakes. I also love that Batmobile.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a takeoff of, it's almost kind of like a merger of the 66 Batmobile and the 70s Batmobile, the 70s sports car Batmobile.
Yeah.
And I've always liked this variation of it as well, because it's more of a kind of a edgy or sportier look to the 66 model I ate up in the 80s.
Hey, I dig tail fins. I've always dig that, and I think it's again, one of the things I like when they introduced the Growler, it was like a tank, and I'm like, okay, that looks cool. That's a cool Batman. The thing I like about the 660, it doesn't look like any other car out there.
Yeah.
Batman needs to have a car that looks like a Batman vehicle. So I agree with you. This car looks awesome. So I'm happy with it. And again, the art choices, everything that they're doing throughout this. And I love when Bruce gets done realizing Joker has a nuke on his hands, and I've got to go. And then he finds out Jason's missing. And it's like, what do I do? And what he's got to do? He's got to go after the Joker because of the fact that, even though he wants to say he wants to help out Jason, he wants to find Jason, he wants to do all that stuff for him, but this is a madman with a nuke heading to Lebanon. And I love how the fact that they're going with Lebanon. Now, one of the things I read, there was some controversy about anti-Islamic, anti-Arab, nations and all that stuff, and them using Lebanon as opposed to a made-up country, because of again, painting them all as being terrorists, painting them all as being evil people who want to conquer the world and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was kind of interesting that, as I'm reading this, I'm okay, because I'm so used to what was going on in the 80s, the late 80s, what was going on in the time, these kind of thoughts where they have a nuke and they're going to nuke people and they're going to kill, that was very prevalent in society at the time. So the fact that they're tying this into it, but also the fact that there was controversy on it, and it's kind of interesting to see if this story was told today, would this be Lebanon? Would this be Russian nation? Would this be an African nation? What would they have done with this? Would this be Middle Eastern terrorists, or would it be somewhere else? And that's the thing that I really wonder about this, because you think how much, it's playing into just that fear that we had back then of, terrorist attack and this and that and all these stuff that was running through people's minds. I wonder nowadays where this would take place. Who would Joker be going to sell his nude to?
It felt so contemporary at the time. Reading the story when it was hitting. Chapter 2, I mean, oh my gosh. It's like the location, Batman's kind of leap into action. That bottom panel on that first page of Chapter 2, where you see the cape kind of wrapping around the front of him like that. I mean, that is stunning. Absolutely a stunning panel. Those are details that this artist is just so good at putting in there. The cape, to me, and that's why I was referencing earlier just how much I loved this cape, and it was the way he used it. And it's just the visual styling of this is stunning. And it's not overused. Like, he will pick the right times to have those moments to sometimes illustrate something about the environment. There's a couple pages later where he's watching a plane, the plane leave because he's staying behind. And you see his cape behind him kind of blowing in the direction of the plane.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a great use of the right moments to let the cape be kind of a visual element of its own. And I always love when artists tend to play around with how they utilize the cape, longer or shorter or whatever, variation that they're doing with Batman's cape as a way to just add some unique artistic elements in this. I think Batman and Spider-Man both enjoy a lot of this throughout their tenure just because of the fact, I think, of the popularity of those characters. They just had some amazing artists that have done some really wacky things with their costumes and, gadgets and gizmos and things that they both interact with. This issue stands out in particular as being one that is really stunning for me. The chapter breaks were really welcome, too, because as a reader, I remember being able to say, I can take a break right here between Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, and the story really let you do that, because it really is beginning another scene. And I'm a big fan of the story structure of this overall. We keep saying that it's a 4-issue miniseries, but in its own way, when you read it, it actually comes off as being an 8-issue, an 8-parter. Yeah. Because of the fact that each issue has multiple parts. And I like the story pacing and the way that it worked out in this oversized book for a really good storyline.
Oh, big time. Big time. And again, I loved how they're jumping back and forth between we've got 3 elements in the story. Bruce, Jason, and Joker. And they're jumping around and giving us a nice balance on it. You get that cool sequence with Bruce, where he finds out Jason's in Israel. And then we see Jason, trying to find out the location of the secret agent, who's possibly one of his moms. And again, showing him, breaking into a government facility, hacking the computer, doing the stuff that Bruce taught him how to do. And it's kind of neat seeing his detective style of this, his style of being a detective, playing out in this. And it's really cool watching this, The
interesting part is Bruce was torn over his decision, and I see how his choice not to go after Jason, not to go after his son, was a fatal error. And I understand, Batman's need to save the world and stuff like that. I'm not disputing Batman. There's a difference between the choice that Batman made and the one Bruce Wayne should have made. And I hope I'm making sense in what I'm trying to say there. And it's a tough one because there's a whole moral piece. We could spend hours just debating that. What should Bruce have done there? I think ultimately at the end, I agree that he did the right thing. What I'm seeing, though, he did the right thing as a crime fighter and as a moral citizen. He did the right thing. As a parent, it was the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's interesting to say that because you see how if he had been there with Jason all along, they may have built a stronger bond. he may have been modeling for him a better way to handle the situation, leading him to his goals quicker, and ultimately finding out what he wanted to know faster. We see it in the sequences where they do eventually converge, and we'll talk more about them as we get to them. But I really, as I'm watching this, Bruce the Loner was the wrong way to go as a parent, not as a crime fighter. And I actually like the conundrum where it's a very real dilemma that you as the reader can go, oh, what would I do in that situation? And to sit there and say, I would have trouble too. What is the right choice to handle here? I don't know that there's a clean answer to that. I like stories like that, where it feels very human, right? We all are faced with decisions all the time that are, well, but there's reasons for choice A and for choice B. And sometimes you have to make, using the evidence you've got in front of you, you've got to make the best possible choice. That doesn't mean we always get it right. Sometimes we get it wrong. This is an example of one of those where you can talk about this story and Bruce's choice and wind up, I think, on both sides, depending on what angle you're coming at it from. That, to me, feels very real when he could do that. This is great writing.
Oh, big time. Big time. And again, when Bruce is there in Lebanon, I do like the fact that, well, he's in Beirut. I like the fact that he recognizes this is no place for an American. And he's traveling under a North Irish passport. So he's not an American. And it's something that, again, there's parts of the world where you don't want to be an American, And I like that they took that little moment where they said that. But then going into the cab, take me to the worst section of the city, a place where criminals gather. I love the fact that Bruce is just going to go there, knock some heads, get the information he needs. And they did a great couple panels, just merging in him questioning 5 different people. Yeah. I did air quotes around questioning because really what he did was he gave him a beating. He gave him a Batman beating. And finally, on the 5th one, he finally gets a name. He finally gets the connection that he's looking for. And I liked how this played out, where we see Bruce doing his thing, and that's where he meets up with Jason. And that was a cool merging. I'm glad, to see them working together. I'm glad to see them on the same page.
Yeah, and I like the fact that we get to see Bruce here as the crime fighter. It's different than the Batman we have now. I know. Do you get what I'm saying? As far as that piece, there's I'm not saying completely foreign, but the way that he engages, even, yes, he's using the physical combat style that we see now, but there's a different poetry to it, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
And the way it leads to the questioning, it's a Batman that is he's more brutal now, I guess is what I'm saying, than this Batman was. That's not to say that this Batman isn't intimidating. I don't mean it that way. He's a crime fighter versus a vigilante. Where I would make a strong argument the Batman we have now is more of a vigilante. Do you agree with me or disagree with me on it? And I'm not looking for you to lean. This isn't one of those. I'm not trying to be argumentative. It's more. Do you see? I guess what I'm saying. Do you see where I'm going with this, or how do you see it? Even more interesting to me is how do you see this guy versus today's?
Well, I do see this guy more. I do see more of the detective being played out in this story.
Yeah.
So that again, but Bruce has always been the great detective. So even present day Bruce, he's still the detective. Now, I think we have the same level of ferocity, but it's the way he's drawn now versus the way he's drawn here. Yeah. Is where it gives you that impression. In present day, you would see the treads on the bottom of the boot. So you would know that's really digging into him. You would see more of the costume has more of an armored kind of look to it. So it looks more fearsome than this, version looks. These have smoother lines. And I think he's got the same level of violence, the same level of beatdown, but the way they draw it now, they draw a little bit darker night now than they did here. But, story-wise, it feels like the exact same Batman. It's just a different look to it.
He almost fights like Nightwing here.
Yeah.
And That's what I meant by the poetry to his fighting, where I feel now he's being written older, if that makes any sense. Because Nightwing's kind of taken this spot in DC. So our Batman today is an older Batman. He's almost like an in-between to the Dark Knight Returns Batman and this Batman. If I'm making any... I'm not trying to oversimplify, and that is a little bit of an oversimplification, but I'm talking about as far as his way of approaching knocking some heads. And I actually quite like the difference, because he often references now the fact that he's slower and he has to approach things. It's almost kind of like the Rocky Balboa movie, if I'm making any sense.
Yeah.
With just kind of, he's got to fight with a different kind of ferocity to achieve the same goals. And I actually like the distinction. I feel like we're seeing the younger Batman here.
Yeah.
And I like that difference.
Well, you think about it, with real life comp, you're dealing more with forearm shimmies, elbow strikes, knee strikes, that kind of stuff versus a kick and a high kick and all that. Yeah, that stuff looks cool, but if you're in a combat situation, you're going to bam, 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 do 3 quick strikes, follow up with another one. Where, this, again, you mentioned the Dick Grayson, this has more of that Nightwing acrobatic styling to it.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. It's but again, it's funny. I like the comparison saying that this is a younger version than what we're dealing with now. The older Batman's going to have to resort to changing his tactics around a little bit, changing his fighting style, using more arm locks, arm breaks, break the arm and a forearm shimmy to the head to drop the guy versus a, flip kick kind of roundhouse combo, thing that you can get away with when you're much younger. When you've got a couple of years on, you're like, okay, I got to be more practical here, And I like that. And again, artwork looks cool. It fits everything. I'm like, there's nothing that seems out of kilter for me.
I like when he encounters Jason, I was ready for it. Like, I wanted to see Bruce and Jason back together again at this point. When he's confronting Jason about why he's there, and Jason's kind of filling the piece out. I love that Jason's like sitting here. Besides, with you coming to help me, we'll crack the mystery of who my mother is in no time. And Bruce, this is where another area where I'm like, Bruce, you're making the wrong choice here. It should have been a team up. Let's team up together. Let's tackle both of these things together. We'll make sure that we're finding your mom along the way. We'll make sure that we're taking care of this world threat right away. We will get all of these things taken care of because working together, we can expedite this process. So that way we can do both somehow.
Yeah.
I love the storytelling, and I wouldn't have changed it in the storytelling. This is me as a reader wanting to smack Bruce upside the head.
Yeah.
And I think I should want to do that because I care about this world. This storytelling went exactly how it should go with where these characters were at this time.
And Bruce does have his moment. He does have a saving moment for me when they realize that Peter Brando and Charmaine Rosen are together. So Bruce is like, well, looks like we're working the same case after all. That little look between the two of them, and the fact that he packed an extra Batwing for Jason, so it was kind of neat. Bruce does have some saving grace moments here, and I'm like, all right, that's kind of cool that Batman and Robin are on the case together. They're working together.
And Bruce admits it feels much better to be working that way. So I mean, it's something where he's embracing it. It's more of the, dude, why didn't you embrace that from the get-go? But that's something objective that you would do with any friend, right? We all make human mistakes and approach things in a very human way. This converging on to then Joker there with his cruise missile.
Yep.
I love the chaos of when he comes on the scene. They didn't overuse him in this. I really liked when they brought Joker in. I was ready to know more about where Joker was at. He was a scene stealer in the moments when he was involved because he's like thinking, hey, I'm on vacation. I'm now acting in a foreign country. I've gotten out of Gotham, where things are a little hot. He's barely even got his feet wet here, and he's already sitting there saying, it can't be him, not here.
Yep.
And I really liked how that whole sequence played out, where, obviously Batman's an agent of Gotham. You more than likely expect him to be operating in Gotham. But this is a piece where it just kind of continues on and how it's playing out. I liked the use of him. I liked the combat we got to see from Robin and him together. Again, these are all reasons that I'm like, how am I voting this guy off the island? Yeah. I love these two together. I'm with you as far as when you're saying, like, how is it so close? Who's voting for this kid to be killed? And I don't know. I can't imagine it. Like, from a story of character evolution, I could have hated him walking into this issue and been kind of like, I don't know. The kid's growing on me. I'm going to have to give him a chance. Like, I want more of this. More of what I'm getting here. That's what saved Jason Todd for me.
Oh, big time. Yeah. And again, I agree with you. And it's funny because, as I'm reading this, I'm like, Jason's actually outstanding. I really dig this character. I love what they're doing with him. And, we talk about just the fluidity of combat. These two working together. The sequence when the guy's got the drop on his potential mom and Jason, comes out of nowhere just like, no, doing the thing wide open. Nothing Bruce can do. At that range, that guy's going to cut Jason down in half. And the mom saves the day. And I liked how they made it look like maybe this is where Jason dies. No, it's not. It's a surprise, there's some really cool stuff playing on the fact that, they tease, hey, someone may die. Someone's going to die. There's something happening here. And I loved how they kept teasing throughout this.
Jason's actions are really, really strong. Some of it validates Bruce's concern, but I really like where you've got Bruce as a parent, like, feeling helpless. Where he's watching this go on with Jason. Jason did the right thing. Because, putting yourself at risk like that is one thing, but it was his mother, right?
Yep.
So I don't think this is some kid that's being rash or stupid. Him cowering in a corner, she's dead. That distraction gave her the chance to be able to react. He was trying to risk his life to hopefully buy a chance for her to have it. It's the pure definition, I think, of heroism, right? So I'm all in on Jason. I'm like sitting here like, dude, I hope I'd react that way in that situation where I would take the brave step knowing that I'm the closest one and really the only chance she's got. I kind of got to step up. This is who I am. That whole sequence leading to the eventual explosion and where it all went, I knew that wasn't going to be his mom, because the fact that they had the three and she was going to be the first, I'm like, there's no way they're going to make it that simple, right? This is going to be a journey of we're going to kind of see. But I really liked, and when you first showed the three characters, you didn't know what Jason's journey was going to be like. Was he going to go in chronological order? Was he going to see them all at the same time? How was Jason going to eventually find out if one of them was his mom somehow? You didn't know what that was going to look like when you were first introduced to it. But her being the genuine first one worked out so well for the story. I like that Bruce becomes like this consoling piece where, he's like basically saying like, let's go head on to the, next one. Jason's, Bruce is like, nice lady. Jason's like, but not the right lady, Bruce. They're continuing on. How do people not know when the Joker puts on makeup that's a Joker?
Well,
we do this with Superman all the time. Who has a long face like that?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I will defend this one.
Go for it.
You think about it. You see somebody who has an obvious physical deformity.
Okay.
You don't stare at them.
True.
Because you don't want to look like I'm staring at you like you're a freak. People would naturally look at that and then look away. So they're not spending time staring at him and studying him. Yeah. Because you don't want to be the one, the point you have him point out and say, what, you're looking at my chin? Yeah. You don't want to be that person. So I can see very easily with him throwing on the flesh colored and dyeing his hair or a wig or whatever he's using, I can see him blending in easily just because people wouldn't want to be a jerk about it or look like they're gawking at him.
Yeah. It's it's something
And
where
I actually love that, by the way. Love that he does this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I wasn't criticizing it.
I know. But
I was just sitting here laughing. I'm like sitting here like it's so blatantly the Joker. Your point was really valid, actually. I wasn't expecting the answer. It's a good one. So as we're heading into 427, I want to shout out, and I should have referenced it earlier. The Mike Mignola artwork on the covers is really sharp. I like the cover. I like the way that they handled the cover design for this event because it was unique to this event. Where you had, I love the bat symbol that's been on the Batman title at this stage, but this like almost bookmark that's on the right hand side, with the Book of 204, where it's it's a death in the family. Robin finds his mother, and waiting is the Joker, planning a revenge that is swift, violent, terrible. Can Robin decide? You will decide details on inside back cover. So this was the issue. Pick it up and wait a minute, I'm voting on this? Huh? It was a cool time. I mean, this level of interactivity, well, it was a cool time as a comic reader to be able to know that you got a chance to decide something like this. We go back in Chapter 3, back to Lebanon. I'm inventing new countries now. And I've liked the way that Bruce and Jason were interacting with the environment. They're hiding out, stealth moves, things like that. These are both two guys that are human but well trained, and sometimes overcoming situations where people have weapons and things, and you don't have that kind of firepower and don't want to use that kind of firepower requires just a better use of stealth action. And Bruce using the dart, the whole kind of way that they stealthily take things down, and I actually really appreciated the recaps because these are big issues that we're getting, right? So even with the fact that now I'm not waiting a month to get the story, I'm just continuing through and reading it. As a reader, I'm like, oh, there can be kind of this quick notes refresh of kind of where we're at with some different detail, like some tiny differences in the presentation. And in many ways, it's fleshing out the most important bits of the storyline. So you as a reader stay completely engaged on all of the players and all of the events that are going on in this because of the multiple different lenses that are happening. I really like stuff like this because they do it quick. They make a judicious use of pages in order to make this happen. This going back to this being an era, though, where there were definitely comic shops, because I bought this at Comics and Collectibles at Shoregate Shopping Center. I mean, this is where I would grab this storyline from. But there was also the newsstand. Depending on where you picked up this book, you may be jumping in at this part. So this, I thought, was a great accessibility point, not only for someone who's reading the story, but for somebody who, I missed part 1. Should I be picking up Batman now? Yes, because we're going to tell you what you need to know. It's a very good use of the pages.
Yeah, and again, it's a well-told story in that we who know what's going on, we're not thrown off by it. You're not thrown out of it. It's a good usage of it, and it's a good usage of the flashback showing us, and it's a flashback then, but it still advances on the story. Mm-hmm. Because we have the flashback of the catch-up, then you go right into how they found out that Shiva Wu-san was kidnapped, leading that back to present when they're in the desert hunting down, trying to find her. Again, well-crafted story, well-laid out story arc. It's, I don't know, I can't keep saying how awesome it is, but it is. I loved how they did this. And again, to your point, having more pages to deal with this adds to the story. Because if they didn't have a larger page count, these kind of pages would be the stuff that they'd have to cut out. They would have to cut out some of these flashback sequences, or they'd have to take out some of the combat sequences. They'd only have one page of fighting versus, multiple pages of fighting, or just a couple panels instead of a full page spread. It's stuff like that I'm glad they gave him enough, room to tell the story that he wanted to tell, how he wanted to tell it. It needs it.
It's funny with Jason maybe not knowing, other than what he's read in the back computer, a whole lot about Shiva, seeing Shiva kidnapped, or hearing that Shiva was kidnapped. that would be disheartening, because he's on this discovery of trying to find his mom, but also he doesn't want to find out who his mom is and find out now mom is dead. Right. So he's being thrust into these very dangerous, like all three women are in the midst of very, very dangerous situations. They all look different, but they're all being thrust right into the middle of these dangerous situations. And I really liked how that was playing out. I felt the danger. I liked Jason's reaction to it, where, I'm looking for answers. And finally, in some of this is a journey of healing for Jason, right? He's lost both of his parents, but now found out the possibility there's another one that may be alive. Whether or not he's able to engage in a relationship with that person, he's looking for something. And I think this journey is very, very different for everybody. When you go, when you hit a point in time, sometimes it's through parents, sometimes it's through other methods. We all hit a point in our life where you go on a journey where you're trying to find yourself. I think that's what we're getting here with Jason. He's trying to find identity, and I really connected with that journey. Not so much not the parent part of it. It's more of the quest to find out, who am I? What are my rules? How am I interacting with the world? How do I start stabilizing some of that? Because one of the criticisms of the character, and it's done in the storytelling the way it should be, is his behavior is very erratic. I really like that this is a Jason who is on the cusp of that evolution, which is, again, where I'm like, I don't want this kid. I want this kid to go on. I want to see more from him. I loved that the story went where it did because of the fact that sometimes that's the reality of life, right? Sometimes situations will work against you. Sometimes life works against you. Sometimes things happen that are out of your control. That's why we should do everything we can to not waste any time that we have. But man, this is a deep story with what's going on here. The two of them, it's nice to see a Batman story where they're infiltrating areas too in another country. Bruce having to okay, I can't be running around as Batman at the moment. I need to put on a disguise. Yeah. And trying to find somebody for Jason that's a similar size, so he has a disguise. The two of them having to infiltrate because Batman and Robin outfits, forget the color scheme difference between the two. It doesn't matter. We can't run around like this. People are going to know that something's up almost instantly. So we have to infiltrate this playing by their rules. And I really liked seeing them. This felt like a unique Batman story. When we get these stories every so often, I really like that you can do that. Yeah,
agreed. No. I as you're going on, I'm nodding my head, and I did find it interesting how the guy that Bruce had, the head dressing is blue, and Robin's is red. So they still keep the basic color scheme of them, in with their disguise. So I was like, that's kind of neat, But I agree with you. The sneaking in and just the taking out of the surrounding guards, working their way in. It's a classic infiltration sequence, and I like that. And I like how later on in the story, it really plays out when Bruce is like, this was way too easy. He realizes what's actually going on with this training facility. And I like how that we see that coming out, where it's not just poor guards. These are brand new trained guards. They're not, experienced. This is a training facility that Shiva is running to, make them better at what they do. So I like the fact that Bruce later on, how easy it was for them to infiltrate becomes part of the story.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Eventually, so by the time we got to this point, I kind of knew that Sheila, or they didn't broadcast it, but with the pacing of it, you got the idea. Sheila Haywood, she got to be the one, right?
Yeah.
Either she's the one or it's none of them. So it was interesting watching her interactions with the Joker and what was going on. Now, I felt sympathetic with her here. What I think is really bold about this story is she is a very complex character. She plays the victim here really well. There's a swerve later with her, which, can we just go to it? The swerve that's going to come up later with her is the fact that she was also embezzling money.
Yes.
She's kind of a bit of a snake. That's not to say that she doesn't have a human side. She totally doesn't care about her kid, but she's very much about Sheila. And you can kind of see why Sheila's a mom, she's painting a picture of when she and Jason do eventually encounter each other. She kind of paints a picture of herself as a victim in the whole thing. I don't see it that way with her. I think that, it's an example of the Todd family who had their own share of problems. They kind of dodged a bullet by having Sheila out of the picture for the longest time.
Well, I'll be honest with you. Who knows? With her around, maybe the dad would have been a better crime family. Because
You're right.
His stepmom was a good person.
Yeah.
If they would have had a bad person with the bad dad, maybe they would have been a better crime family. So if she hadn't taken off, maybe Jason would be a much better crime lord.
Wait. He would be the Red Hood in a very, very different way.
In a very different way, yeah, exactly. And I do like how when we first introduce her, how, as you said, she comes across like she is, she's the victim here. She's like, hey, Joker's blackmailing her on the past because she's got a good life going on here. She's got a good person, and this will kill her. This disgrace will, kill her. Past indiscretions will hurt her currently. Well, her past indiscretions will expose what she's currently doing illegally. So I like the fact that initially we're thinking, oh, this poor woman. Later on, we find out, no, she's a bit of a snake too. Okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed about this is the human aspect of these characters, the human aspect of where the story goes. There's so many ways that it could have ended cleaner, and I actually like that it went the dirty route, right? Where events were sometimes influenced by the fact that there's something else we don't know about her. There is, Shiva's story is an example of this. We get every one of the people that Jason's encountered that could be mom have had their own little twists and turns. The Shiva storyline was great, especially knowing this. When I read this back in '88, I knew on a very basic level of who Shiva was. Very basic. Now I've read so many storylines of Shiva, this reads very, very different knowing who Lady Shiva is. And I really enjoyed how this played out, where these two are infiltrating, and Bruce keeps saying, this is too easy. This is way too easy. He keeps referencing it throughout. I love that we just see with her the eyes. She's watching the entire time. So he's right. It's way too easy. And the piece that's bringing that in stereo, the other speaker, is Shiva's eyes. Yeah. The visual styling of these pages was really, really great. These are master storytellers at work. And when you get to see little pieces like that, I'm like, oh, man. This is something... So they did the animated feature, Death in the Family, which I think is really good. I enjoy it. It's hard to capture this in any other medium, right? This is an example of a story that was a great animated movie. It didn't capture every element of this, and I think it's hard to, if I'm making any sense at all.
Yep. Oh, no, it makes sense. And I agree with you. This has been the storytelling again, when we have this cool Shiva stuff. Because we have this great fights, we have multiple pages of Bruce versus Shiva. And I love the fact that Shiva knocks Robin unconscious, so he misses all of the initial dialogue, all of the initial stuff going on between Lady Shiva and Batman.
Yeah.
Because later on, when he wakes up and sees them fighting, it questions, who do I help? Do I help the lady who may be my dad, who may be my mom, or the guy who raised me, who taught me everything I know right now? Who do I face? And he obviously sides initially with Batman, and the two of them work together to take down Shiva. But I love how this opening sequence, and again, I remember, I'm trying to remember. I know I didn't know who Shiva was. When the first time reading this. I'm confident I didn't know who Shiva was. So when you see the fighting stuff, it is kind of neat seeing how she keeps up with Bruce, how she's able to go blow for blow with him to the point where she draws some blood. She knocks him around a little bit, and it takes a combo, a Batman Robin combo, to really take down Shiva. And I thought that was a neat, usage of this character, a neat usage of Batman and Robin together, showing, again, how dangerous she is, how good she is at fighting. That she was going one-on-one with Bruce, not breaking a stride too much. It was a tag team that finally took her down. Now, granted, eventually Bruce would have taken, if it had stayed one-on-one, my money's on Bruce. But I love seeing this initial fight sequence where it was going back and forth, where she's giving as well as she's getting, and it was kind of neat.
From a storytelling standpoint, this is where I applaud the talent. I don't know if who made the call for this fight to go the way that it did, but what's beautiful about it is we got a great fight, right?
Yeah.
We got a fight that showcased the talents of Bruce, that showcased the talents of Shiva. Robin's interference and the way that all went down meant that the question wasn't answered, right? Which I think is brilliant. It didn't need to be answered here. This story lent itself to leaving that nebulous as far as who would win, Batman or Shiva. I'm with you. I'm Team Bruce all the way. But I like that this story didn't answer that. If you're a writer and writing a serialized medium, do we pay it off here? Or do we leave that dangling so you come back to it later? This is awesome. Some of our favorite, you and I are both pro wrestling fans, right? Some of our favorite pro wrestling stories are the ones that they choose to prolong a good angle, right? This is an example of prolonging a good angle. Because this left me wanting more. I'm like, where's round two? Like, I want to see these two fight again. I want to know, because you're right. We're assuming as Batman fans that, like, well, Bruce is going to do this, but that hasn't been determined.
Yeah.
And the question is genuinely there because of how that fight was going. Because you can make the argument she was in the lead if you're going on points.
Yes, if you're doing points, she was in the lead on the scorecard. And again, it's kind of neat in the comics, when you can see, male-female combat where it's not so one-sided. Mm-hmm. Where, again, she's using her speed to her advantage. She's using her knowledge and her training to her advantage. Men and women fight differently. And you very clearly see that. And even Bruce had a couple comments where he's talking about how fast she is. She is faster than him. He's got more raw punching strength and punch power, which is what finally, the haymaker is the one that finally takes her down, because Robin distracts her. But, there is that, that grace that she has, and that speed and the power. She has her own, power sets. So it's kind of neat seeing that. And it's always interesting when, you see men and women fighting. However, in any story that they tell, whether it's wrestling, whether it's movies, books, TV shows, and whatnot, it's always interesting to see that, because the question always runs in, you run into sometimes is, can you have a male person hitting a female? Can you do that? Or are you, endorsing some type of, domestic violence or whatnot? This right here clearly shows how you do that, how you actually have male versus female fight without it, endorsing or, pro anything horrific. You make the female just on that same level. She's got the same levels. Like, some of the intergender matches that I've seen in wrestling have been these brilliant stuff, because, again, the female wrestlers keep up with the men, and you're like, yeah, she could beat him without a problem. I can 100% see her taking him. And those kind of fight sequences, those kind of stuff, really actually add to the story, add to the element. I love this sequence. This was a brilliantly written, again, art and writing really working together, to show how strong of a fighter Shiva is.
Well, a lot of martial arts showcase how a smaller opponent can beat a larger opponent, or subdue a larger opponent. Using their own weight against them, using their momentum against them, different things like that, where they're in many ways helping to defeat themselves. I like when I love when martial arts creep into comics and film and TV shows and stuff like that, and they're done well. And I think that really worked in this piece. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the sequence when the fight's done and she is toying with them. She's like sitting here, I've dropped litters in every corner around the globe, because they're asking her about whether or not she had a baby. And, Jason's like sitting there. He's not getting the answer that we're going to. Bruce has to go to a place. I really liked this. So he pulls in the sodium pentanol But this is my favorite sequence. It's the thought balloon box. Every fiber of my being is revolted by the thought of what I'm about to do. It won't stop me, though. And I like the determination of the only way to get the real answer of this is to do the drugging piece. I like that Bruce morally doesn't like it.
Yeah.
This is an example of, you mentioned thought balloons earlier. This works in the story where you get to see layers to Batman, where I'm not giving up on this, but I know that it's wrong. I like that. I like that quite a bit. It's good writing. Really good writing.
Oh, big time. And again, I like the fact that, I'm agreeing with you completely how awesome that was. But then I like the fact that he hung around until the drugs wore off.
Yeah.
And they waited around until the drugs wore off, and then they left her because, again, it's not illegal in that part of the world. They can't, bring her in for that. But it was a cool moment where, again, between Bruce and Shiva, where she once again says, our paths will cross again. And again, like you, I want to see the next fight between these two. I want to know when that happens again to see how it plays out. And then also the other sequence I loved about this was how the fact that after that we see a very positive Jason saying, "Hey, that means we got one more. That's probably it. Ethiopia, here we come." And it's Bruce and Jason, not Batman and Robin, going to the person who's obviously Jason's mom. And I was like, that is a really cool way of handling it. And again, great usage of showing just the hardship of what they're encountering. Because again, this part of the world, they're dealing with, just how horrific, things were going on back then. Oh, there's still a lot of problems with world hunger, we're facing. And Ethiopia is one of the fronts of it. So seeing this, and they spent a little bit of time just to show, and again, our team showing Bruce and Jason, just like, oh man, and you can tell both of them want to help out. Right now Bruce is thinking, okay, I need to start writing some checks. I need to get some money. I need to get research. You can tell it's going through his head as they're looking for, this doctor. I loved how this played out.
Yeah, and that idea of who Bruce is as a humanitarian and around the world, I like this established Bruce Wayne as this kind of guy. We don't always see this in the comics with him. This was definitely something that was prevalent in this era of Batman as far as his impact on the world as Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is a kind of a known commodity for doing these pieces. And I really enjoyed seeing these two, Bruce and Jason, together. As I'm reading this issue, it's, how are you voting the other way? Yeah. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Because from a storytelling standpoint, it's funny because in multiple interviews, Starlin was assuming that Jason was going to die from this piece. But boy, as a writer, I got to give him credit. He was telling the other side, whether he because I don't think he liked the character much. And by the way, I want to be very clear. I don't have Jim's just anecdotes that I'm reading is alluding to the fact that Starlin may not have liked this character much. Now, who knows? By this time, he may have evolved this character to the point where he did. I really am sitting here wow, this is a character through his whole journey to discover his mom and stuff like that. I really was engaged in Jason Todd. I wanted him to be, reunited with his mom. Whether she wronged him or not was kind of irrelevant to me in this piece. I was all in Team Jason on this. That to me is the victory of this piece. Bruce, for as much as I'm a Batman guy, I was riding with Jason in this story, for the whole thing. And more as the story went on, which you should be, because the name of the story is Death in the Family, and you're supposed to be getting on this journey to where ultimately that's going to be, is Jason going to live or die in this storyline? You know where it's heading. This journey with him was fabulous. Yes. Fabulous.
Oh, big time. And again, I love the sequences when they first see him, when Jason first sees her and just everything going on. And I love the thought balloon with Bruce. It's as soon as I see her, I know we've paid her. Jason's got her eyes. I love that little sequence. And again, they showed a quick close-up and they show her eyes and they show what Bruce is talking about. I'm yeah, this is awesome. And, the hug and the embrace. And I'm reading it now, and I'm still wishing this turned out differently. But you know how this plays out. You know how, but still, just how wonderful and how like Mom, Mother, just hugs her and hugs her. He's like, oh my God, and I'm like, this is awesome. This is awesome. You feel great for him, and even Bruce is like, hey, I'll come back in a couple hours, give you guys some time, together. And even Bruce is thinking, hey, did I just lose another partner? Is Jason going to stay here with his mom? And again, that would be a wonderful thing for Jason Todd. If Jason started working with the mom, if Elvis didn't play out as the way it plays out, this could be a happy ending for Jason Todd. And I love the fact that they laid out this possibility that things could actually turn very positive for Jason, giving you the idea of here's how the story could go positively, or here's how the story is going to go negatively. And I love that they did that when they initially created this story.
So one of the things that they're doing at DC is, and I just want to shout it out because I mentioned it briefly before, there is a miniseries coming, a 4-issue miniseries exploring the alternate ending to Jason Todd's death. It's called Death in the Family, Robin Lives. And this is going to be J.M. DeMatteis with art by Rick Leonardi. And the first issue is going to be published on Wednesday, July 10th. And it will include the main cover by Rick Leonardi with an open-to-buy variant cover by Mike Mignola. So it's called From the DC Vault. J.M. DeMatteis is talking about his respect for the original creative team and how much he's trying to bring about the original vision about what would have happened if Jason had lived. So we're going to actually get to see a whole miniseries around the alternate version of this storyline, nice. Which is really cool. So I want to shout that out just because the fact we're talking about so much about where this could have gone. It'll be interesting to see what they do in this alternate version of this. I'm excited for that. The mom is pretty cool in this one because we get, I think, the ultimate con artist here, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a certain amount of it where she does care to a certain extent. She's also shocked because we saw how she handled the Joker, right? That was flawless. She's doing the same thing here with Jason, and I think you catch that in second and third readings of this piece, that I think there's a certain amount of it that's genuine, but I think your typical con artist is able to do that, right? They tap into genuine emotions as a way to sort of exaggerate the truth to a certain extent, because she is all out for her. And she keeps looking at that clock and watching time and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed how that all played out. She's shooing him out because she knows she has a meeting coming up with the Joker. Yep. And, Jason catches on to that piece and reality sets in as far as what mom's really doing at this point. I really enjoyed everything about this whole portrayal of Jason and his interactions with mom, because she's still swerving me at this point.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, okay, she made some bad decisions. Joker's really manipulating her. This is basically a good person with some skeletons in the closet that the Joker's manipulating, not having any idea that at the end of the day, she's got more than skeletons in her closet. She's currently embezzling. I didn't know any of that was going on when I was reading this, and I think that to me is brilliant writing. When a writer cares enough to give this a 1-2 punch, we're very lucky as comic fans at the amount of talented writing and artistic talents are involved in creating these stories, that they care about delivering something that's a little bit different. Like, they could have kept it very simple. You could have kept this the way that it was going with mom being basically this victim with the skeletons in the closet piece. The ending could have been the same. The twists and turns that come up with this, I think, are what make this story a standout and add depth to it. This is a story filled with a lot of depth. And I think that's why it's hard to do this story in a film format. I think if you're going to do this story, you almost have to do it on a serialized show. Like this would be a great mini-series for HBO Max or Max, whatever they're calling it now, or something like that. Although we seem to have shied away from doing that kind of stuff. We'll see what happens with, the success of Penguin. but I think this would serve itself much better as an animated miniseries. I liked the animated feature. I want to be very, very clear. But the animated feature did not have all the layers of this. If you disagree with me, please tell me. I think when you read this, there's a different level of depth to this storyline. And that's not knocking the animated feature. They did an excellent job with the time frame that they had.
Oh, big time. Yeah, I agree that the animated feature did a great job. A limited series where you have multiple, you can always dive deeper into it. Yep. And this really, again, the stuff with Dr. Hayward, with the, Jason's mom, I love how they keep playing it up that, up until the big reveal, they're playing it up that she's being blackmailed by the Joker. Even Jason's like, when he's following, like, Joker's blackmailing my mom. I gotta protect her. Runs to Bruce, tells Bruce what's going on. Joker's blackmailing. Going into this, both Bruce and Jason think 100% that Dr. Hayward is the good person in this. She's this honest person, and she's being blackmailed by the Joker. And it's just like, I love how that plays. And then when you eventually you get the big flip, and you see, oh no, she's been skimming money as well. Oh, that's awesome. Did they need it? No, they could have. As you said, they could have very easily played out the story with her playing, and that she was, she was an innocent victim of the Joker. But I love that they did that to give us that one final little surprise. Now, the sequence that I thought, again, one of those moments when you want to reach in the book and smack your friend inside the head. The sequence where Bruce is pulling out the Batcopter and tells Jason, don't tangle with the Joker alone. Wait for me to get back. Right there, you knew what the kid was going to do. What you thinking, Bruce? You should have brought him along with you to keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
But again, if he'd done that, then the story would be dramatically different. But this, again, leads to a cool sequence with Jason saying, sorry, Bruce, this is my mom. I got to do this. And Jason approaches the mom, and Jason's talking to the mom. Now, one of the things that should have been an indicator to us is that she was the bad guy was when they show her smoking, because I guess, only villains smoke, because, when you see her light up, I'm like, oh, she must be a bad guy.
I wonder how that worked. I got to think back to 80s comics and how smoking worked in 80s comics, because you're making a good point. And it does seem to be later, when, like, never in front of him. So you've got an interesting point there as far as like that being done at a point in time where we're off camera from our hero versus being on camera with him. It does add a layer to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And think back to, in the 80s, they never really showed the hero smoking. I'm trying to remember, who, if there was ever, like J. Jonah Jameson had the big cigar, and not Jameson, I'm drawing a blank on the Daily Planet.
Perry White.
Thank you. Perry White always had his cigar. So there was a good guy who was a smoker, but in reality, I don't remember ever. You don't see the good guys smoking. It was always set aside for the villains or the questionable people or whatnot. It wasn't the heroes.
Yeah, I guess I've never really paid attention to it as much until like when you're saying it, I'm like, well, there's a lot of what you're saying that feels true.
Yeah,
it's an interesting point. I'd love to see see if there's a lot of correlation to that.
Yeah.
What? Go ahead.
Well, again, going on with the Jason and his mom bit, the one thing I did like was the initial opening of them. And she's like, she's holding back. And then he's like, hey, I can help you. And he opens up the shirt and you see the Robin outfit. Yeah. And she knows who he is. And that's when she's like, come with me. And I'm like, right there is the turn. Right there is the moment when she's turning. But I do like the fact that when they're inside, she doesn't call him Jason. She calls him Robin. So when they're around the Joker, because he's hanging around the corner, she's calling him Robin, not Jason. I thought that was an interesting little play.
Well, not letting Joker know that that's her son.
Right.
Was an interesting sort of piece. As we're looking on with the Joker sequence beforehand, I just wanted to step back to one thing. When the Joker reveals his plan, the fact that, each box contains enough gas to cover, a 4-acre stretch. And he's like, just consider my little contribution to the war against hunger. You know, his attitude is, let's just kill off everybody so that way nobody's hungry.
Yeah.
I love that she's got that whole monstrous point to him. You're right. She never calls him Jason. And it's interesting to see what that looks like because she's protecting herself on so many levels. Not telling the Joker who Jason is that for Jason's? So there's another layer to look at this as. Is that to protect Jason's identity? I don't know. I think it's to protect her.
Yes, I agree completely.
I don't think she's doing that. I don't think she's doing that to protect Jason in any way, shape, or form. I think she's doing that for her own purpose of, hey, the Joker knows that this guy's my son. We got all kinds of problems here.
I 100% agree with you that she is protecting herself, not Jason. And again, I love the sequence, where the beatdown of Jason. Because they don't really show how graphic it is. They keep showing the Jason. They keep showing the Joker swinging and all that. And this is horrific. Then they go to the mom, where first she's staring, then she's horrified, and then she just lights up a cigarette. I'm like, oh, man. Again, this is where they're really showing that she's the bad guy. She is a bad guy. She's looking the other way while her son is beaten to death.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that is just absolutely brilliant. Because, again, this is why they made her a villain. This is why they made her embezzling, because if she was just the person being, if she was just someone who was being blackmailed by the Joker, she would have lashed out. She would have done something there, and then she would have gotten, a smack from the Joker. But this shows her being able to stare there and just casually let this happen. They wanted to show, yes, she's an evil person as well.
Well, I'm going to question that a little bit, though. I think you're right in the fact that she's not a good person, that type of thing. But she goes from like a regular, cold, emotionless stare to then that middle panel. She does not like the violence that's going on around her and escapes into the cigarette for the violence. That is now a nervous habit. That is her escaping from the situation. It's not that she doesn't care at all. I think the interesting piece is what is really going in that head of hers. Does she care about the kid? Maybe to a small extent. I would say that there's that piece to a certain extent. Really, it's this level of violence. She is a con artist. She is not looking to, I think, deliberately kill people. Jason's problem is that's her panicked about her own future. It's like she'll sacrifice Jason for herself to live, which is what she's done here. So she's escaping into her own guilt. But no way, she's not trying to stop it. She's not trying to, that's where the remorse, it's not really a true amount of remorse. But she's not comfortable what's going on around her. I actually like that complication of it's hard to pin down how to 100% feel about her in that situation. I agree with you. She's a bad guy in this. No doubt about it. But she's a complicated bad guy. And that's what makes her interesting. They introduced her in a very short period of time and made her an intriguing little character study, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh, big time. And again, I love how, in some of the inner dialogue that Bruce is going on as he's flying there. In the helicopter saying, I made a mistake. I should have had Jason go after the truck, but he never would have left his mother.
Yeah.
And I do like the fact that Bruce is analyzing what he did and how he should have done it differently. Because, yes, we're all agreeing, Bruce, you never should have left Jason alone. But somebody had to stop that conflict. And I love that, throughout this, Bruce has been given the difficult choices to make between being Batman and being a father. He's been given those choices, and every time he's always picked being Batman. He's always chosen that I've got to go after the convoy. I've got to go after the Joker. I've got to do that. And it's those choices, that lead to Jason's downfall. And it's kind of interesting that, you think about how this is the choice issue where people get to vote on whether he lives or dies. And throughout it, Bruce is making all those, those bad choices that are leading to it. So I loved how they played all this out. I loved how they still gave him plenty of time to find the convoy, take down the convoy. But he can't fly back. He's got to drive back. He's got to take one of their trucks. And that's what slows him down too much. If he was flying, maybe he could have got there in time. Maybe he could have made it because the helicopter would have gone a little bit faster than the truck did. I'm like, oh, just misses it. Just a second too late.
So, Jim, I'm actually starting up my own series of 900 numbers based on this storyline. And mine is around Yellow Ninja Bat Darts. I think we should have one line voting for Yellow Ninja Bat Darts and one line against them. I think we're going to have a strong amount of people that would agree we need to bring back Yellow Ninja Bat Darts because they've been used throughout this story so far. Every time they've been used, I'm like, man, is that cool. This sequence, we got, again, on page 37 of it, when he's, throwing one drug-tipped dart over there. I love these bat darts. He doesn't use this kind of stuff now. I mean, he's got all kinds of cool gadgets now. I'm not knocking current bat gadgets. But one of the ones he needs to put back in his arsenal is this. This is not a boxing glove. This is something that is super cool. They make a ton of sense. And I just love their usage in there. It's kind of like it when there's large numbers, Batman's ability to come in from a stealth standpoint and boop, get you in the neck. I love the use. Am I wrong? I mean, like, do we not need these back?
No, I'm going to disagree with you. I'm voting no.
Really?
I'm backing the no crew.
You really are.
No.
Listen, dude, I have a Mac. I'm going to tell you right now. So what we found is there was a possibility that somebody was using a Mac to call over and over again. I'm going to call over and over again for Yellow Ninja Bat Darts. I am very pro them. I am willing to skew this.
And, well, you forget something. I also own a Mac. Now, the only difference between us is you would actually know how to do that.
That's exactly right. So it's not much of a threat when you say it. I really could do this. So yes, I'm willing to skew it for Yellow Ninja Bat Darts. I think that they're way, way cool.
Now, on one hand, now the serious side of the conversation for that, I agree with you. It could be interesting. The stealth side of it, but I do like the fact that Bruce is less dependent on a gadget. It does go back to
really.
Yeah, I do like because again, it's I don't know, it's the.
I like bat gadgets. And
bat gadgets I agree. There's some neat toys and all that kind of stuff, but there's some stuff that I do like when he gets physical and he gets that edged in reality. Because one of the things with
let me be very, very clear. I'm not looking this as we're going to put in Yellow Ninja Bat Darts now, and Batman was never going to be doing combat again. I love bat combat. I love Ninja Batman. Case in point, the Shiva thing. I think it's great. I'm just more saying as a supplement, not in place of. But go ahead and where you're going with your because
okay, so it's kind of like James Bond. You're a huge Bond fan, much bigger Bond fan than I am. But the Bond I like are the Bonds that are less Bond gadgety, more of legit badass who is a well-trained secret agent who does stuff that you and I couldn't. Kind of like almost a Batman kind of Bond thing where it's more of the physical and that less on the gadgetry. That's the kind of Bond I like. That's the kind of Batman I like.
So in this issue that we're reading right now, do you feel like Batman was too reliant on gadgets? We had the Shiva fight and stuff like that. No. I'm looking at this issue, and all I'm saying is we've got two Yellow Ninja Bat Darts in this issue. And this is a double-sized issue, so it's really one in each issue, if you kind of look at it that way. And it wasn't during the Shiva fight. I don't know. I like the use of gadgets. I actually agree with your Bond analogy is fantastic, because I actually agree with you. I like the Secret Agent Bond more, too. Daniel Craig, for example, I thought his movies were a nice refresh to the Bond franchise, because we got to see more of the Bond physicality, more of the Secret Agent, more of the having to deal with when you don't have those type of things. But we still had, Secret Agent gadgets. But there's a difference between using gadgets in a cool way or using, prop items in a good way and being over reliant on them to the point where we never believe anymore that person's an effective secret agent, an effective combatant. I don't want that. I'm still pro Yellow Ninja. I'm sorry. I'm still very, very pro Yellow Ninja Bat Darts. But yet I am nodding and completely agreeing with your... I love all Bond movies, even the ones that are gadget heavy. And I find that I'm with you. I do prefer the ones that are more secret agent focused. Doesn't change my love of Yellow Ninja Bat Darts, though.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and they're not overdoing the bat gadgets in this, so I don't want anyone to think I'm saying that. But I do. It is one of those things where I do like, the more like the Shiva fight is prime example. That fight there was a great fight, and some of this, and when they did use the Yellow Ninja Bat Darts, I never once thought, oh come on, no. It was good. I'm not knocking anything they've done. Just, Dude, it is one of those things where I like he goes up behind, knocks the guy unconscious.
I would like to point out, though, in the Shiva fight, that he used the ultimate bat gadget to win that fight. Robin.
Yeah.
So he technically did use a bat gadget. The brutality in the 80s of what Joker did to Jason Todd, that upped the game. I mean, that was brutal. I mean, absolutely brutal. And later on, when we do see, the after effects of, Joker holding that crowbar, that was brutal. Because you only see, right from those initial sequences, you see the one middle panel where you see blood on Robin's legs, and just see his legs sitting there. And, I like that she's from a certain standpoint of... she's like sitting here like going, hey, wait a minute. What happens when Batman finds out about this? And it's like, listen, why are you confiding in the Joker in any of this stuff? Yeah. Because his answer is never going to involve protecting you. If anything, he's like destroying the evidence, including you. Yes. And where this was going, I'm kind of like, duh? Like, what do you think? I loved how this story played out.
You knew it was coming. You knew it had to go this way because it's the Joker.
Right.
He does this. He covers his thing, and I love his logic. Even he's like, Batsy is all about vengeance, but he needs 100% to know exactly before he comes after me. If I destroy all the evidence, including the eyewitness, he won't 100% come after me. He's going to come after me because it's Batsy, but he won't come after me for this. He won't know for certain that I'm the one who did this. I love just the logic, illogic, the strategery, shall we say, of the Joker in these moments in that, he's laying out. And it's neat because, again, we see how much of a villain she is, in this stuff. And we see she is a bad guy. So her getting her death, but you still feel bad for her. She's embezzling from a, charity fund. So that right there is evil, okay, flat out. If you're stealing from people who are trying to feed hungry, starving children, you're evil. So we've got that covered, but you still end up feeling bad for her. And I love how she's like, Joker, you can't. I played you straight. Well, you played straight with the Joker. Doesn't mean anything to the Joker. You're going to die now. And it was absolutely brilliant how they laid this out. And even to the point where, when she first sees Jason alive, and once again, she's now calling him Jason. Now, going back to modern day present stuff, Joker, the Joker and Jason Todd interaction, where Joker was taunting Jason, present day, saying how while he was beating Jason, Jason was begging for his life and said, if Joker let him live, he would become his Robin. Now, did that actually happen? Who knows? I believe it did. Yeah, I believe that, all played out because just the lengthy amount that Jason got beaten as a kid throughout this sequence. So I love how present, writers can take something from the past and add to it, add a detail that we're not aware of. Add something that is, horrific, take something that is horrific and make it even worse. I love that.
Yeah. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. The fact that it's even out there as something that the Joker's spreading is fascinating because it's another Joker mind game, right?
Yes.
Where the Joker's playing with the truth one way or the other. It's fascinating. Now, the mother has a bit of a redemption in this scenario because Jason wakes up and she has this opportunity where we've seen her. She's a survivor, right? She keeps saying she played the Joker straight. She really didn't. She didn't give him all the information. She gave him the information that suited her intended survival when it came to the Joker. But in this situation where Jason's freeing this survivor, she had the chance to run out on him and didn't.
Yeah.
I did think that was way cool. It didn't make me all of a sudden go, wow, she's so great now. But I'm like, all right, at the end of the day, she could have left him there and saved herself. She would have lived if she had done that. I like that she ended up, she wouldn't have known because the door was locked. So, I mean, the door being locked still would have been a problem, although she would have had more time to perhaps wrestle with the door. That whole ending was fantastic because I was thinking, are they going to escape? Cool, they're going to escape. I hope they escape. And, the whole thing goes up. And that was the cliffhanger, with Batman being on the outside going, dude, I was voting. I was excited to vote. I wanted to see this kid live. This cliffhanger ending was phenomenal. This is a way to do a story. I mean, knowing that they would leave their readers in a place where you turn the page after the explosion and Bruce's reaction, and now people are grabbing a phone number to vote. I'm surprised. Now, the 10,000 vote number that they've got, that seems low to me for that era.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? Well, I guess because it was a 900 number. I think it cost you something to vote. So I guess if it cost you, I'm trying to remember during the day, it had to have cost me something to vote. If it was costing you something to vote, then I could see maybe that impacting the amount of them. But still, 10,000 is a decent number. Total votes for this type of thing. Super cool.
Here's something interesting. Mm-hmm. You talk about the redemption of the mom.
Yeah.
As she's going to the door, 5 seconds left on the clock, she puts Jason down over. Even if the door was unlocked, she wouldn't have had time to run back, grab him, and go out. If that door was unlocked, she would have just stepped right out.
I don't know that I agree with you. She was dragging him all the way over there. Why?
Yeah, again, I don't know.
She's not paying attention to the clock. We're seeing the clock as viewers. She's not looking at the clock. She set him down to get the door. Because it says, stay here while I get the door. So she set him down right by the door. She's panicked about the door. I don't think she was setting him down to leave him behind. I mean, because here's the thing. Look at the amount of time it took her to get to the door with him. I don't know. Yeah. I'm of the mindset, why would she pick him up at all?
Yeah, she didn't have to abandon him. She would have, she would have ta-ta.
She didn't. She looked back at him and she's like, come on, let me help you. I'm not saying that she's Lily White. Actually, this does not make her a hero. The most evil people can make heroic choices at times. Right. I think if anything, it's a testament to him that she was making the different choice. She has to look back at him and go, what am I going to do in this moment? Do I leave this kid who's been nothing but heroic? Or, do I just get out myself? And she made the right... I do think she was making the right choice there. It does... I don't know, when she got out the door and got him outside, I'm agreeing with you 100%. She's taking off. She's not going to, stay there to care for him or anything like that. I think she would be content with, I got him outside. This thing's going to blow up. And because he freed her. So remember, if he didn't untie her, she'd be dead.
Right.
He could have crawled out himself and didn't do it. So she had to look back at him and go, he just freed me. Am I not going to do the same for him? And I agree with you. She got it in her to just say, thanks, buddy, I'm out. But I think in this scenario, she really was trying to... I don't know that she was consciously trying to do the right thing. I think this is an example of a mom who is a bad person, who in that moment, the motherly instincts took over, and she could not leave her son behind. Mm-hmm. And that's all there is to it.
I'm going to go along with that. I'm going to throw out my bitter sarcasm that I have in life and say that's what was going on there.
Well, but I think your sarcasm's accurate on who she is as a person, though.
Yeah, and again, it does add to a whole bunch of stuff where if they had gotten out, if the door had been unlocked, and they had gotten out, what would Jason have done? Because she was embezzling from this charity fund.
Yeah.
Would he have turned her in? No, of course not. Would Bruce have looked into it and found the embezzlement? Yes. What would Bruce have done about it? So there's so many different things that woulda, coulda played out of this scenario that I'm like, I wish we had it.
Holy caffeine!
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of the show. RagingBullets.com is our show website. That's where we list any of the new upcoming episodes and when they're going to be released. That feeds into Twitter. It feeds into our Facebook fan page. We are proud to be part of an amazing Facebook group community where you can find all kinds of comic chat, pop culture chat. It's a safe place. It's where I go for my news first. The team over there does a great job of curating really cool stuff that's happening across comics. Certainly, if you have podcasts and blogs that you do and you're a friend of our show, please feel free to shout them out in that section. I consider this to be a community and certainly want to be able to support anything you do. And we often get that where people will put up their reviews and posts and things like that to get it out to our community. And we certainly want you to take advantage of our community for that purpose. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Seglin, what's going on over at DCBService.com?
Remember, DCBS is not just for comic books. There's comic books, there's action apparel, there is figures and various collectibles. And they got a great search engine. So if you're looking for some Batman stuff, type in Batman in the search, hit go. And right now I'm looking at the Batman Grapple Launcher, a prop replica, 40% off, only $26.99. So thank you, DCBS.
When you said action apparel, I was wondering what you were planning on doing with that. Over at InStockTrades.com, they have the Absolute Justice League, the world's greatest superheroes hardcover. $100 regularly, 50% off, only $49.99. Thunderbolts Epic Collection, Volume 2, Wanted, Dead or Alive, $44.99 regularly, 46% off, only $24.29. The X-Men 2099 Omnibus hardcover. They have both cover versions of this. $125 regularly, 46% off, only $67.50 for the cover of your choice. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. You can hear me regularly on Is It Jaws? It's a movie review podcast using the Jaws 1 through 4 movies as our rating scale. I do that over there with Paul Spataro, and please feel free to check us out if you're interested in film reviews and film commentary. The About Us section of the show website is how you can contact Jim and myself on social media platforms, gaming platforms, basically any way that you want to connect. We want to connect with all of you. Jim, Free Comic Book Day happened this week. I want to shout out a shop called Comics and Friends. It's in Great Lakes Mall. It's right around the corner from me. I'm in Mentor, Ohio. Really got a chance to hit Free Comic Book Day. I've been very comic happy lately. It's a great shop, and it's something I'm definitely going to be hitting much more regularly than I have been, just because I really enjoyed the experience of seeing it. Really friendly staff and just a great social event being there for Free Comic Book Day. Our next episode, we're going to be back and discussing Part 2 of Batman Death in the Family. We will see you then.
Bye.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the books we've read with spoilers straight ahead.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think
Jim,
Jim,
how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's our production.